Before the Monday Night Wars led to WWE and WCW pitting top stars against each other on weekly television, the squash match was king. And to have squash matches, you need people to get squashed, which means you need some jobbers. WWE Jobbers played a huge part in getting the major stars over. Of course, not all jobbers are created equal. While some could barely bump, others truly excelled in making their opponents look as good as physically possible. So join me, Sam Driver from Cultaholic Wrestling, as we celebrate the 10 best WWE jobbers. Pin me, pay me, join us. Number 10, Barry O. As the son of Bob Orton Sr., younger brother of Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., and uncle of Randy Orton, you might think that Barry Orton, who often wrestled as Barry O, would have been destined for wrestling superstardom too. But Barry was way more into music and movies and basically got into the business as a way to make some quick, half-decent money while pursuing his real passions, which is what made being a jobber the perfect role for him. A good but unspectacular worker, Barry also looked a lot better than a lot of the jobbers WWE used in the 80s and early 90s, but he lacked the larger-than-life physique of a superstar. And so Orton took his lumps and stared at the ceiling for the likes of Ricky Steamboat, Tito Santana, the Junkyard Dog, the Texas Tornado, and Bret Hart on WWE television. Orton actually had runs in more prominent positions for other promotions, including Stampede and the Poffo family's ICW outfit, but to most fans, he'll be remembered as Barry O, a guy who did his job, and the job, in making those higher up the card look dominant. Number 9, Brady Boone. In another era, Brady Boone might have had a shot at being a much bigger star. Athletically gifted, Boone, a native Minnesotan who went to the same high school as Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, and others, excelled at gymnastics. But at just 5 feet and 7 inches, he was considered undersized for WWE in the 80s. An opening match guy who won a few matches against other lower card talent on house shows, Boone's primary function on television was to help get other people over. Yet while Brady, who really did look like a smaller Billy Jack Haynes, invariably got beat, he was typically allowed a spot or two to shine and would show out with different types of flips before he went down for the count. The list of wrestlers that Boone did favors for in quick TV squashes included Randy Savage, Demolition, Butch Reed, the Honky Tonk Man, Ted DiBiase, and Greg Valentine. He returned for another shorter run in 1990 where he was given the gimmick of Battle Cat and got to win a couple of squashes of his own before leaving the company. And he later did enhancement work for WCW. Number 8, Lanny Poffo. I'm sure there's going to be some who will balk at referring to Lanny Poffo as a jobber. We all love Lanny here, guys, calm down. But before he became the genius, it's no lie to say that Leaping Lanny was mostly used to do quick jobs to others on TV. Whereas his brother Randy Savage was signed and pushed as a major star right away, Lanny wasn't so much a macho man as just a man for those higher on the pecking order to get a win over. Lanny, who may not have been the greatest wrestler of all time, but certainly knew what he was doing and could really sell for his larger opponents, laid down for Kamala, Paul Orndorff, Hercules, and a host of others. Whenever he got the chance to wrestle a longer match against another prelim guy, another jobber to the stars type, Poffo would demonstrate his athleticism with some pretty mind-blowing moves for the mid-80s. Lanny always maintained that he didn't mind doing so many jobs as he got to live his dream by traveling the world and making a good living in wrestling. He was later repackaged as the Genius and famously scored a W over Hulk Hogan via countout. Who's the jobber now, brother? Number 7, Jim Powers. Unlike most WWE job guys, Jim Powers clearly spent the hours in the gym, and for a while it seemed as though Powers could be a genuine WWE star when in 1987 the promotion put him and Paul Roma together as pretty boy tag team the Young Stallions. But after his run as a Stallion came to an end, Powers went right back to his role as a guy who would get some wins over other opening match guys on house shows or local syndicated TV shows while getting run over by actual WWE stars on national broadcasts. Because of his good luck and the fact that he'd had at least a bit of a push alongside Roma, it usually meant a little more when a WWE star beat Powers rather than some out-of-shape ham and egger plucked from the locker room at random. The problem for Powers was that though he had the body, he didn't really have the charisma, and his actual in-ring work never really got above average. Like many others who did a great job as a WWE enhancement guy, Powers later did the same thing for WCW. Number 6, Duane Gill. A huge wrestling fan growing up, Duane Gill got into the business when he befriended Barry Hardy, who started wrestling on the Maryland indie circuit but soon found work as a WWE jobber. Gill followed his friend and tag partner there, and the two teamed up to get destroyed by everyone who was anyone, from the Legion of Doom and the Hart Foundation to the Bushwhackers and the Rockers. In singles action, Duane, sometimes spelled with a U, sometimes with a Y, because why does it really matter, got battered by them all and took his beatings well. There was a reason why WWE used Gill pretty consistently for the first half of the 90s, and it's because he was good at what he did. After not getting any WWE work for a few years, Gill returned in a big way in 1998. First, he upset Christian to win the WWE Light Heavyweight title. Then he was repackaged as Gillberg, a humorous parody of WCW megastar Goldberg. He might have won a couple of matches, yes, but Gillberg went back to losing and ended his WWE career fittingly by dropping the title to S.A. Rios in 45 seconds. Number 5, Johnny Rodz. Few so-called jobbers in WWE history have been as influential as Johnny Rodz, who may never have won a WWE title or been a big fan favorite, but left enough of a mark to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame class of 1996. Rodz began working for the then WWF way back in 1965 and was a solid, believable heel. He might have been a bigger star in those earlier years, but Mr. Unpredictable rather predictably lost the majority of his matches as his full-time career wound down in the 80s. Rodz played an important role in helping to make the big stars like Jimmy Snuka and Hulk Hogan look like big stars. For wrestlers who the company had plans for but were perhaps not the finished article, Rodz was the sort of reliable hand who could lead them through a simple match before losing. It was a skill that led to Rodz becoming a well-respected and reputable trainer after he retired, with names like Taz, Devon Dudley, and Tommy Dreamer on his resume as successful students. Number 4, SD Jones. As well as training stars of the future, Johnny Rodz was also responsible for Conrad Ephraim getting his break in the business. Dubbed Special Delivery Jones, he would travel around the country gaining some experience here and there, but really, he was a WWE guy through and through, and was at one point used as the last job guy that a top heel would work with before starting an arena program with a Bruno Sammartino or a Bob Backlund. A lovable loser who gave it his all but invariably came up short, SD Jones had a natural charisma that gave him a genuine fan following despite his lack of wins. A fan following that led to him getting his very own action figure and a spot on the very first WrestleMania, where he was duly turfed within seconds by King Kong Bundy. Well liked by both the office and the locker room, the Antiguan native wrestled close to 2,000 WWE matches during his career. SD Jones was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame via the Legacy Wing in 2019. Number 3, Steve Lombardi. An engaged fan who took in shows at Madison Square Garden during his youth, Steve Lombardi did some basic training, got a little bit of experience, and before he knew it, he was getting regular work with WWE. With an average look and still really learning what the business was all about, it made sense that he would start out as a job guy. Of course, Lombardi did the job of jobber so well that he never really got out of it. Few wrestlers, if any, suffered as many in-ring L's as Lombardi did during his career, which saw him do various gimmicks, including Kim Chi, Abe Knuckleball Schwartz, and most famously, the Brooklyn Brawler. But regardless of what outfit he was wearing or how much TV time he got, Lombardi knew what his function was, and he had absolutely no problem bouncing around for a babyface before being pinned or made to submit. He had more personality and charisma than the vast majority of the tomato cans WWE used as enhancement guys during the 80s and 90s, and his unselfishness led to him enjoying a career in-ring and behind the scenes that lasted a remarkable 33 years. Number 2, Barry Horowitz. Once known as Barry and Brett with 2 T's Hart, Barry Horowitz achieved his greatest fame under his own name during the 80s and early to mid-90s, where he became one of WWE's most recognizable jobbers. Horowitz had pedigree and experience, but perhaps lacked the it factor required to move a bit further up the ladder. What he really excelled at was making other people look good by working a believable, technically sound style and selling his backside off when the time called for it. One of the noteworthy things things about Barry's act was that he would give himself a pat on the back prior to being beaten. Horowitz's habit for losing, though he did have a few victories against others low on the totem pole, was written into the storylines when he scored an upset victory over Skip on a 1995 episode of Wrestling Challenge, and then followed it up with another victory over the Body Donner at SummerSlam. This mini push was a nice reprieve from looking at the lights, but Barry Horowitz will always be remembered as a team player who did his best to elevate others. And number 1, Mike Sharp. When the average person thinks of Iron Mike, they more than likely flash to an image of Prime Tyson obliterating his opponent's jaw. But when I think of Iron Mike, I picture a big, greased-up, hairy-chested man grunting and groaning before being put on his back. And that's the difference between us, folks. Dubbing himself Canada's greatest athlete, Iron Mike Sharp was once a rival of WWE champion Bob Backlund, but soon settled into life as someone who did the honors for those who were on the ascent. An old-school meat-and-potatoes grappler who did nothing really fancy, Sharp had decent size and would provide a bit of a test for his opponent before getting beat. A gatekeeper of sorts, WWE cards in that era would often have Iron Mike on them, riling up the fans before getting his ass kicked. Well-conditioned due to his OCD resulting in near-constant physical training, Sharp could be relied upon to go longer if needed, but his place was as a prelim performer who was there to accentuate someone who was flashier and had more charisma. But one thing's for certain, they all owe Sharp and jobbers like him a big thank you for their part in making them the stars they were.